Welcome to the Wargaming Garage and this 1000 point incursion level game between Death Guard and Space Marines. After answering the calls for help from the Sisters on Sanctuary 404, the Ghosts of the Forge are exploring this broken city looking for a battalion of Sisters that went missing and went dark weeks ago, only to discover that the Necrons were the least of the Sisters' worry. So here we have just under 1000 points of Death Guard. We have, for HQ choices, we have Captain Trips, which is the Lord of Contagion, with a Man Reaper, Arch Contaminator, and he has the Unstable Sickness, Deadly Pathogen. So hopefully if he gets into combat today, he should be like a wrecking ball. Backing him up is his right hand man, the Malignant Plague Caster, who we've also given spent a CP and given the staff that enables him to have 3 psychic powers. So he's running Miasma of Pestilence, he's running Putrescent Vitality, and he's running Curse of the Leper. As elite choices today, we're running a squad of 5 Blight Lord Terminators, 1 Flail, 1 Auto Reaper, and then we've got the champion with a combi bolter and axe, and then 2 bog standard Blight Lords with combi bolters and bale swords. As troop choices today, we're also running a squad of 7 Plague Marines, 1 with a Blight Launcher, an Icon of Despair, and a Flail, the champion having a Plasma Pistol and a Power Fist. An additional squad that has a Cleaver, 3 Plague Marines with Bolters, and then the champion with a Bolt Gun and Power Fist. We then move on to a squad of 14 Poxwalkers. Hopefully they're just to cause a bit of mayhem and tie up units. And then with a bit of long range support, we've got a Plague Burst Crawler with Plague Spitters and the cannon. So all in all, hopefully a unit there that can do set units there that can do some damage, both in close combat and also to be pretty immovable from the objectives. Here is just under 1000 points of Space Marines. Again, leading the way is Captain Petra Lachlan, who is has a Warlord trait of Anvil of Strength and has the Burning Blade. So again, should be pretty handy when it comes to combat. Hopefully we'll get to see a Warlord on Warlord, but we'll see what happens today. Backing him up is the Lieutenant with a Grav and Power Sword. Then for elite choices today, we have a squad of Assault Centurions with Melters, so hopefully be able to do some damage if we can get up close to that Plague Burst Crawler, but let's see. We have a Contemptor Dreadnought with fist weapon and the multi-melter. We then have a squad of Tactical Marines, which is a Sergeant with a Plasma Pistol and Thunderhammer, and then a last cannon for heavy weapon. Another squad of Tactical Marines, which is just plain standard Marines all the way through to missile launcher, and then there's a heavy support today. We've got a Predator with the auto cannon and Storm Bolter and 2 lance cannons. So there's the 2 armies. Let's look at deployment and the mission. So we drew today's mission from the open war deck. As you can see, for deployment we got the 2 table quarters, and for the objectives we got where you put 1 objective marker in your own deployment zone, 1 in no man's land, and 1 for each enemy in their objective, in their deployment zones. So one in your own is worth 1, one in no man's land is worth 2, and one in your enemy's deployment zone is worth 3. The twist we got today was hatred, so we're making an attack against the closest enemy unit, re-roll the wound rolls of 1. So let's see how that pans out in today's mission. As is usually the case, I'll be using these red dice and the Games Workshop dice. So red being the Space Marines and the Games Workshop dice being the Death Guard. So let's see who wins for deployment. Death Guard. Okay, we'll have a look at the table and see where they end up going. So looking at the table layout and thinking about the narrative of Sanctuary 404 and how the Death Guard and the Warband, the Heralds of the Scourge are getting involved, then we're going to take the Heralds will take this end, this table quarter here. You know, they've been here for some time. They're the reason that a whole battalion of sisters went missing, and that's the reason why the ghosts are out here, to try and see what actually happened to them and bring them back into the fight. So it makes sense that the Death Guard will have secured this part of the city. You know, these stoic statues are leading the way into this kind of cathedral-esque building in order to whatever it is the Death Guard are here desecrating, it needs to be put an end to. So let's move on. Let's get the armies deployed, then we'll move on to the roll-off for first turn. And so with the red dice, we're for the Space Marines, and the Games Workshop dice for the Death Guard. We'll roll off and see who gets first turn. So it's Death Guard, turn 1. So here we are at the end of the Death Guard movement phase. This larger Plague Marine unit, that managed a whopping 6 for its advance, so we brought it through to hold the central objective, because again we are dead simple mission here from the open war pack. It is literally holding objectives at the end of the battle round, so that one will be worth 2 points if they can hold on to it at the end of the round. We brought this squad of Marines around the side of the building. We shuffled the Poxwalkers forward to get them inside to the terrain, give them a little bit of benefit of light cover over the objective. The Plague Burst Crawler has moved round, and the Terminators with the Lord of Contagion has just shuffled forward, remaining inside the terrain. So with all the movement done, we'll move on to the psychic phase. So the Malignant Plague Caster has moved himself forward inside the building, and now what he's going to do is cast 2 powers. He's going to cast Smite onto the nearest visible unit, which is this squad of Marines here, and then to give them a fighting chance of staying alive on that particular objective there for the end of the battle round, he's going to cast Miasma of Pestilence onto this squad. So casting Miasma of Pestilence first, and that goes off on a 10, so those are now -1 to hit. And casting Smite on the Tactical Marines, that goes off on a 9 for D3 damage for 2. So that's 1 Marine goes pop, and the first exchange of blows. So the first thing we're going to fire is the Plague Burst Crawler. We're going to put the cannon, the mortar, into the Predator at the rear, because it doesn't have to have line of sight. We want to just try and cripple that's movement and everything else like that. And then we're going to put the Heavy Slugger into the squad of Marines that are in front of it. And the Plague Spitters are out of range. So if we start off with the Heavy Sluggers into the Marines, so 3 hits. Strength 5 against Toughness 4, so wounding on 3s. And because it's the nearest unit to it and we're playing Hatred, you get to reroll 1s. So that is 3 wounds at -1, but because they're in light cover behind these barricades, it's +1, so 3 up saves. Which they're fine. So onto the mortar for 2 shots. So hitting on 3s. We've used a stratagem from the new book, which is Disgusting Force. So when it makes an attack, it has a damage characteristic of 3. After it's shot, select one enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more attacks made by the Plague Burst Mortar by that model. For roll 1d6 for each unit within 3. On a 4 up, that unit suffers mortal wounds, so it's got a lot of splash damage as well. So we've got the 2 hits, so we'll be enacting the second part of that. It's strength 8, toughness 7, so wounding on 3s again. Rerolling 1s because it's a plague weapon. So both wound. So on to the saves. So -2 for 3 damage. And 1 goes through. So we'll mark that up. That has 7 wounds remaining. And now for each unit inside that 3-inch radius, so we'll have the Terminator Captain, the squad of Tactical Marines, and the Dreadnought. So for the Terminator Captain, he suffers a mortal wound. For the Tactical Marines, suffer a mortal wound. For the Dreadnought, also suffers a mortal wound. Pretty brutal stuff on that first opening salvo from the Plague Burst Mortar, the Plague Burst Crawler. And so these Plague Marines fired into the Centurions, but did not make any wounds at all. So all that's left to fire now is these 2 Blight Lord Terminators, who can see the Tactical Marines over behind the barricade. So we'll go to the dice tray and roll off and see what we can do. So there's 2 that can see. So strength 4 versus toughness 4, so winning on 4s. So it's 2 wounds and no AP. They're behind light cover, so +1 to their save, and they're fine. So the Reaper auto cannon is going to go into the Assault Centurions. All hit. Strength 7 + 5, so wounding on 3s. That's 3 wounds. Not the nearest unit, so we can't re-roll the 1s. -2. So that's a 4 up save. And then light cover, so that's 3 up save. And 1 takes 1 wound. We'll mark it up and see what's left. So with nothing else in range, and the unit of Plague Marines on the central objective having advanced, and there's nothing else left to fire. So at the moment the Death Guard hold 2 objectives, so let's see what the Space Marines can do as they start their turn 1. So with the movement phase complete, we've brought the Assault Centurions up slightly, try and get them into view to get some wounds off using their melters. We brought the Predator around to the front, again keeping him within 3 of this objective inside the building. Tactical Marines have moved around, along with the Contemptor Dreadnought, the Lieutenant, with the Captain advancing through. So although he will do nothing this turn, he'll certainly be in that or getting himself up the field. Along with these Tactical Marines, who again have skated around some of this light cover, hopefully to try and get some wounds off some of the poxwalkers they can see up the front there, start thinning the ranks over on that fire objective, hopefully for later turns in the game. So with that movement phase complete, with no psychic phase for the Space Marines, let's move on to the shooting phase. So after firing out bolters towards the poxwalkers and causing no damage whatsoever, and the other bolter towards the Plague Marines in the centre of the board, again causing no damage, we're going to fire a crack missile over at the Plague Burst Crawler and see if we can start to inflict any wounds on that. So we've spent the CP for steady advance, so it negates his -1 thanks to moving. So we're hitting on 3s, which we hit. It's strength 8 versus toughness 8, so we're wounding on 4s, which we wound. It's -2, so 5 up demon save, which we fail, for D6 damage. Okay. No. Okay, alright, we'll leave that in case there's anything else I want to try and get rid of. Or will I? No, I'll re-roll it. I'll spend a CP on that. Okay. For 3, down to 2. Okay, it's 2 wounds off the Plague Burst Crawler. So with a couple of wounds off the Plague Burst Crawler, we're going to throw the multi-melters from the Dreadnought into the Plague Burst Crawler, and the combi bolter from its melee weapon, melee arm, into the Plague Marines in the centre of the board. So start with the combi bolter. It's 3 hits, wounding on 5s. It's 3 wounds at no AP. One takes a wound. We'll mark that up. And then the multi-melter into the Plague Burst Crawler. So hit on 3s. Oh. I've used a command point, so okay. Good chap. So bolter fire from this tactical squad, taking another wound off the wounded Plague Marine. It's now the sergeant with his plasma pistol. We're not going to overcharge because there's now literally no point. So hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, and -3 for 1 damage, but obviously with him in light cover becomes a 5 up save, not a 6 up save. Doesn't make, and takes 1 damage. So then the last cannon is going to go into the Plague Burst Crawler. So we haven't spent a CP this time because we've spent it earlier, but it hits. Strength 8, so strength 9, sorry, toughness 8, so again wounding on 3s, which it wounds, so straight through a 5 up demon save, even though it's -4, which it doesn't make. I haven't spent the CP. No, we'll wait for a minute. What else is left to fire? Yeah, okay, we'll wait. So D6 damage. For 5, reduced down to 4, so that's another 4 wounds off of the Plague Burst Crawler. So melter range being a thing, we can only get 2 of these Assault Centurions in, which would be 1 into that Plague Marine squad and 1 into that Plague Marine squad. But everything else in terms of hurricane bolters is going to go into this Plague Marine squad down the side of the building here. let's get the dice lined up. So it's this many dice, which is quite a lot of dice. So that is 2 hurricane bolters each at 6 shots. So there's 18 shots coming in, hitting on 3s. I don't think my hands are actually going to be big enough. No. Right. So we'll do a bunch first, then we'll do a bunch second. So bear in mind, omniscope is still a thing because we have a sergeant, so these plague marines will not receive the benefit of cover being on the side of that building. So this is the first batch hitting on 3s. So there's 2 misses. Second bunch. Dropped a few more. And the last bunch. And dropped a few more. Okay. So it's wounding on 5s. Quite a few dropped here. So it's 5 so far. Only one more. Right, okay. So that is 6 3-up saves. It takes 1 wound. Okay, so on to the melters. So first 2 into the squad down the side of the building, both hit. So wounding on 3s, that's 1 wound. That is -4 that don't get the benefit of cover. So that's D6. So that's 1 marine gone. And the second one into the other squad in the centre of the board. Both hit. No wounds. Unbelievable scenes, Jeff. Okay. Let's see what the turn ends up looking like after this, see if there are any charges to do. Okay, so as a Space Marines player, I've got a couple of choices here really. One plan would be to try and get these Assault Centurions into this squad at the centre of the board. If I can, it gets me a lot of territory up the board, gets me onto that centre objective, and hopefully with siege drills, etc., we should be able to plough our way through that squad. It is a shorter charge as opposed to that one. The other option is obviously to then bolster that is to get this tactical squad into combat as well, and see if we can make a difference with that, and again get them up the board. So I think what we're going to do is we'll attempt the charges with both of those and see how we get on. So measuring, it's a 9-inch charge for the Centurions into that Plague Marine squad, so we'll go for that and see how we get on. And then it's a 6-inch charge for the tactical squad. So the assault squad first. I've got a CP, so let's burn a CP on that one. I really want to get them in there, try and get them up the field, because I only want to try and stop, if I can, just be in the way for those Blight Lord Terminators. Let's give it a go. Okay, so 9 is what we wanted, 9 is what we get. So can we get the other squad of Tactical Marines in? Yes, we can. Okay, so we'll move them all in and then see what we can do. So after pile-ins, it's looking like we can get 3 Assault Centurions in with only one, looking at this, kind of one tactical Marine to then also fight. So we'll start off with the Assault Centurions. So we're 3 attacks base, 1 for shock assault on the Centurions, 4 attacks base, 1 extra for shock assault on the Sergeant. There's quite a number of wounds coming in, but with Miasma and Pestilence they're hitting on 4s this time, but wounding on 2s, so let's see what makes a difference for them. Yeah, dropped quite a few, so not too many though. But that's 5 wounds, that's 5 attacks that haven't gone through. So wounding on 2s. Okay, so 3 more dropped. So that is 5 wounds. These are all 3 attacks, 3 damage, so any of these that fail are dead Plague Marines. So they're -4, but with light cover they'll be -3, so that is 5 6-up saves. Wow. Okay. There you go. They're not going to die anytime soon. The Tactical Marine misses. Must have been the shock, I guess. Okay. We'll do some pilings back and see who's eligible and put the and do the fight phase for the death. So we remove the 2 casualties, but we're spending 2 CP on trench fighters, which basically makes 1 additional attack with plague knives and creeping blight. So any plague weapon, including the flail, has an armor penetration of 4 if it wounds on a 6. We'll also spend another 2 CP, taking us down to 1 remaining, because we really want to try and get rid of these Centurions, or at least damage them somewhat on Eternal Hatred. So we're adding 1 to that attacks wound roll. So hopefully we can really try and get some extra wounds in there. Bear in mind it's an unmodified wound roll of a 6, so it doesn't mean we're doing creeping blight on a 5. So let's gather up all the attacks and see how we get on. So with the additional attacks made, we've got 6 attacks coming in from the 2 remaining Plague Marines, and they'll be hitting on 3s, and because contagion range is a thing, they reduce the Centurions down to toughness 4, so they'll be wounding on 4s and not 5s. But with that additional attack, with additional wound roll as well, they're now actually wounding on 3s, re-rolling 1s. So they're all going to put everything into the Assault Centurions, because we really want to clear them down to make way for the Terminators to become a real pain, a real thorn in the Space Marine side. So let's see how we get on. So everything bar 1 hits. So wounding on 3s. Any 6s are -4. So that's 4 wounds plus 1 -4. So it's on to the Space Marines saves. So let's do the -4. We're still getting the benefit of light cover due to all of the obstacles and things around that particular area. So that's how I'm counting it. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, because the motto of this channel is mistakes are going to be made. So we'll go for a 6 and don't get that, so that's 1 wound down, and then a further 4 at -1, back to +1 for cover, so 2s, and another 1, so that is 2 wounds down on 1 of the Centurions. So we'll move on to the Flail. Okay, so with the Flail of Corruption, it is 4 attacks, getting not necessarily complicated, but a little bit in terms of the sort of pluses and minuses. So it will be 4 attacks, hitting on 3s. It's +1 to the strength, so that is, and then with the Eternal Hatred on there, it means he's wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. It is a -2, so that will be 4s, and then saving on 3s because of cover. So anyway, let's see how we get on. So hitting on 3s first. They'll hit bar 1. Wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. Reroll that 1. And those 2 6s are also -4. So that 1 is straight out. I've got 1 6 up to save 1, another 6 up, and a 3 up. So the first one, he's dead, so that's 1 Centurion removed. The second one, that takes 2 wounds, and a 3 up. He's fine. So that is 1 Centurion gone and 1 down to 2 wounds. So now we have the champion with his power fist, who's going to get 3 attacks. So that's 3 attacks because it's unwieldy, hitting on 4s. So we get on. That is 2. It'll be strength 8 against toughness 4, so wounding on 2s. So that's 2 wounds go through. That'll be -3. So that becomes -2, so up to 4 up saves, which it doesn't make. So another Centurion goes down. So with nothing else left to fight, that marks the end of the Space Marine's turn and the end of the first battle round. So tallying up the points, the Space Marines are holding this objective in their own deployment zone. The Death Guard are holding the mid-table, which is where they want to be. And they're also holding the objective in their own deployment zone. So let's move on to battle round 2 and see if the Death Guard can further secure whatever it is they're doing here on Sanctuary 404 and whatever this once sacred ground means to them. So at the end of the Death Guard movement phase, we've remained in combat with the Centurion and the remaining Centurion, who passes morale, and the tactical squad. This Death Guard, this Plague Marine squad has moved around. We've stayed on this objective with the Poxwalkers, and then we've moved the Blight Lord Terminators, Captain Trips, and the Plague Burst Crawler, moving up this central avenue in the ruined city on Sanctuary 404. So the Malignant Plague Caster has also shuffled slightly forward to get himself more into range of a few different things to try and take out some of those Space Marines in the combat area. So we'll move on to the Psychic phase and see what damage you can do. So for the Psychic phase, we'll be putting Smite into I think the closest one will be the Centurion, and then we will do Curse of the Leper onto this tactical squad and see if we can remove, or at least get rid of, several of those members of that squad. So we'll start off with a Smite. Right, start Super Smite. Let's see if we can get rid of the Centurion in one go. Yes, his mind bullets just eradicate him. And then we need a 6 for the Curse of the Leper to go off. which it doesn't. I've gained a CP that will take me to 1 if I use it, and it would really, although I can do a charge with that. No, I'll leave it. I kind of wanted to show it, but never mind. Okay, no, we'll leave that and we'll move on to we'll move the Centurion. That will really, I think, hamper the Space Marines. You know, in an ideal world, the Centurions would have got into combat with the Terminators to try and really, you know, if you slog it out with siege drills versus the Terminators, would have been a pretty good combat. But you know, the aim for the Centurions to try and clear that centre board, obviously failing, meant that you know they got tied up and ultimately failing to psychic. So we'll remove him and move on to the Death Guard shooting phase. So what we'll do, we'll move on to the Plague Bear's Crawler. We'll start off the shooting phase with him, and we'll fire again. We'll fire the Heavy Slugger into the Tactical Marines, and we'll fire the Mortar into the Predator because the Plague Spitters are out of range. So we'll start off with a Mortar, for D6 shots for 5. It's now hitting on 4s because it's been bracketed. So only get two hits there. It's also wounding on 5s because it's now strength 6 against toughness 7. We're re-rolling 1s. So re-roll that 1. Okay, so it gets a wound through, which it fails. D3. That's for flat 2, sorry. So that takes the Predator down to 5 wounds remaining. And then Heavy Slugger. So now it's hitting on 4s. And pretty good. So that is strength 5 versus toughness 4, so 3s. 2 wounds go through. And as they're both obstacles, as light cover, both pass. So let's move on to the Blight Lord Terminators and see what they can do. So the Blight Lord Terminators fired the combi bolters into the Tactical Marines, causing a wound, and the Reaper Cannon fired into the Dreadnought, which bounced. And with no other real viable targets, this squad of Plague Marines fired into the Predator and again bounced. So now, with all that shooting done, we'll move on to the charge phase. So it'll just be, as a Death Guard player, we really now want to be holding that middle ground and want the Space Marines to come to us. So what we're going to do is move this charge this squad of Plague Marines into combat here and try and move these Tactical Marines out of the way so we can really solidify the centre of the board. So we're in with a 7, so I'll move them in, pile in, and then see what that gets us. Okay, so after movement and pile-ins and everything, we've managed to get as many of them as we can in. So we'll start with the Cleaver. So he'll have 2 attacks. He doesn't get any extra attacks with this Cleaver, but it is unwieldy, so he'll be hitting on 4s. But he will be wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and it's D6 damage a time. So let's see how we get on. So he hits once. Re-roll that 1. Okay, wounds. It's -3, but because of obstacle cover and everything, light cover inside there, it will be a -2, which is failed for d6 damage. Okay, it doesn't spill over or anything, so that's just one Marine down. I'm on to the 2 Marines in there with their plague knives. We did spend a CP on the remaining CP we had for Creeping Blight, and the other one, the additional attack. So they'll be hitting on 3s. Good spread there, really good, really good. And again, contagion being a thing, so I didn't do the additional wound roll, so I'll be wounding on 3s, re-rolling 1s. Don't have to do that, but with 2 6s, that's -4. So we'll do those first, which obviously becomes -3. One's okay, and one's not. And then, so that's another wound taken. Then the other 3, which are -1, so back to 3 of saves. So that's another Marine and a half killed, so that's 2.5 Marines down. And then we'll go on to the Sergeant, the 3 attacks with his Power Fist. So hits once, wounds, and he fails. Oh, yeah, fails to save, and again kills another Marine. That's 3 out of the 4 remaining that have gone. So morale will definitely be a thing if they manage to survive the fight phase that's coming up. Just defenders will fight first, so we'll carry out that once I've removed everybody. So we'll see. So I'm spending a CP on Death to the Traitors, which allows me to re-roll the hit rolls. So we can at least try, because I've left the Sergeant alive. He's got his Thunder Hammer, so we'll try our best to do as much damage as we can and reduce the number of Marines inside that area. So his 3 attacks, because he's got no shock assault this time around. Didn't need that, they all hit. Okay, that's really good, really good. So with his strength 8 versus toughness 5, because of the doubling up of the Thunder Hammer, be wounding on 3s. All 3 wound. So it will be -2, but obviously now -1 because of the same cover will apply. So only 1 goes through, but that is 3 damage reduced to 2 damage. That is 1 dead Plague Marine. So I'll remove him and then fight back. And with this squad of Plague Marines fighting back, the Sergeant didn't stand much of a chance, and so with that casualty removed, the Death Guard secure the centre board, securing this cathedral and whatever diabolical thing they're doing inside it to please the Grandfather. So now on to Space Marines, turn 2. Okay, so more difficult decisions had to be made around this one because we're getting a bit thin on the ground. You know, some of the punch has gone out of the Space Marines army to a degree. So there's a few things we've got to try and make sure actually work in our favour this turn. So we brought the Contempt around in an effort to hopefully get rid of this squad of Plague Marines in the centre of the board and at least start to contest this objective. The tactical squad have continued their move up the flank, just to try and hassle and hold some of these things up. You know, it might be a bit of a waste in the end, but let's see what we can do. And then basically the Predator is going to try and do as much damage as they can to the Terminators, and hopefully they make them Plaguecaster, because now he's out in the open a bit. So let's see what we can do. Again, no psychic, so we'll move on to the Space Marine shooting phase. So the tactical squad managed to unbelievably finish off the 1 wound Terminator, and then they fired a crack missile and did a, although it did 3 obviously with discussing resilience, it was reduced down to 2. So that leaves that Terminator with 1 wound remaining. So hopefully, the plan is starting to take shape. So we're going to fire everything from the Contemptor into the squad of Blight Lord Terminators. So we'll start off with the multi-melter. Do I want to CP that? Do I want to CP that? What's left? Yeah, I will. That does 2 CP. I really want to see if I can get rid of these Terminators. Oh, right, okay. So, wounding on 3s. Wounds. -4. So that goes straight through. So 6 up save, which it doesn't make. And that's D6 damage. Are we in half, actually? Let me just check. Yeah, most definitely. So D6 plus 2. So that's 4 damage. Gets rid of that 1 wound Terminator. So we'll move on to the Predator and the Captain. So after firing with the Captain doing nothing onto the Terminators, the Predator's firing, he's fired a Stormbolt already into the Playcaster doing no damage. It's just fired 2 las cannons into the Terminators, which it's hit. So it's going to be 3s to wound. Both wound. So this could be a pretty clutch moment in terms of getting that through. So -3. One fails, 1 doesn't. So D6 damage. Let's see what we can do here. Oh, okay, the dream is pretty much evaporating. Right, so then we'll go for the auto cannon, which is 2d3 into the Malignant Playcaster because he's out in the open now. So that is 4 shots. So the Predator is bracketed, so it's hitting on 4s. Think about it. That is 1 wound. Which is failed for 3 wounds. They're down to 2, so the Playcaster has 2 wounds remaining. Last thing to fire would be the Lieutenant. So let's see if we can do some damage with the Lieutenant onto the probably the Playcaster. See if we can get getting down to 1 wound. Okay. So we use the grav gun. So hits. Doesn't wound. Okay. So all that being said, let's go on to the charge phase and see what we can do. So we move on to the Ghosts charge phase. The Contemptor was an auto in, it was only 2 inches away. So we'll charge the Lieutenant into this squad of Plague Marines. which on the 9 he's definitely in. And then we'll charge the squad of Tactical Marines into the Terminators. On the 5 they are in, and then lastly we'll charge the Captain into the Blight Lord Terminators too. So that, by my reckoning, is a 7-inch charge. So let's see how we get on. With a 9 he's definitely in. We'll move them all in and consolidate and pile in, and then we'll activate the fight phases. So after the charge phases and all the pilings are complete, we'll start off with a Contemptor in an effort to try and clear these Plague Marines down and start contesting this objective in the centre of the board. Let's see how we get on. So the Contemptor has 4 attack space, 5 with shock assault, and with his combat weapon he becomes strength 14 minus 3 damage. So he's basically hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. So let's see how we get on. Let's see, he's hitting on 3s. I really need to, I know it's early in the thing, but I'm going to spend a command point to re-roll one of those, because I really need as many of these to go as I can. Okay, so wounding on 2s, and so that will be 2 wounds. Okay, 2 of them are within light cover, so we'll use those. Pass 1 and we fail 1 for 3 damage. So that's 1 Marine, 1 Plague Marine out of all of that goes down. So what we'll do, we'll move on to the Lieutenant, who is hitting on 2s. Again, 4 attacks, 3 attack space, 1 for shock assault, hitting on 2s. And so now he is strength 5 with his power sword, so it's wounding on 4s. So that's another wound. It's minus 3, which they pass. Oh god. Okay, not going so great there. Okay, so let's go on to the Tactical Marines, and we'll spend a CP, removing all of my CP now, down to Death to the Traitors. That allows me to re-roll the hit rolls. So that's everyone. There's nothing special weapon-wise in terms of this particular squad. So hitting on 3s and re-rolling 1s because of the Captain. And I'll just double check that. Yep, that's still a thing. Okay. So strength 4, toughness 5, so wounding on 5s. Not too bad. You won't have knocked you. So 5 wounds. No AP. And 1 Blight Lord takes a wound. Okay. So it's on to the Captain then. So 5 attacks, hitting on 2s. He's got the Burning Blade and he's got the Anvil of Strength, so he's now strength 9. So he'll be wounding on 3s. And it's minus 5. So let's see how we get on. Really could do with clearing these down. That's 1 missed. So wounding on 3s. That's 4 wounds. So each one of these is 2 damage. So with -5, that doesn't give them a save, so that is 1 Marine, that's 1 Terminator down. In fact, no, it's not, because it's a 2 damage weapon. The one was on took a wound, so that equates to 1 Terminator down, and that equates to another Terminator down. So that is 2 out of the 3 that were left. So not amazing going, but better than but not bad. Okay, so I'll remove those models and do some consolidation, see where that lands us, and then we'll do the fight back. So we'll start over here with the Plague Marines fighting back to the Contemptor. They've left the Lieutenant alone. They've much rather deal with the threat, the greater threat that's in front of them here. So we'll start off with the standard Marine. We've got no CP left at the moment for the Plague Marine, for either army at the moment. So I'll start off with the bog standard Marine. He misses unbelievably. So we'll start off then with we'll move on to the Flail. So 2 hits, and he's strength with the +1 for the Flail. He will be strength 5, so wounding on 5s. 1 wound at -2, which goes through for 2 wounds, moved down to 1 wound because of the Duty Eternal. So that's 2 wounds on that Contemptor Dreadnought. And so now the Power Fist from the Champion. So 3 attacks, hitting on 4s because it's unwieldy. That's 1 hit. He'll be strength 8, so wounding on 3s, and doesn't wound. So now the only one we've left in, the Lord of Contagion couldn't do heroic intervention because he couldn't move through the other models. So in one way, kind of protected him from the charge, because you have to go round the other Terminators, but obviously it kind of did him a disadvantage for any heroic intervention. So he won't be activated in this fight back. But certainly leaving the Flail alive was a good move in terms of then. I'm going to, as a Death Guard player, I'm going to be putting all of the attacks into the Captain, because he's the bigger threat than those Tactical Marines. So, with that is 3 attacks. 3 attacks, hitting on. So 6 attacks, because it's 2 for each one. So that's 6 attacks, hitting on 3s. So all but 1. The Flail makes him strength 5 versus toughness 5, so it's wounding on 4s. So that's 2 wounds go through, and that's onto his invulnerable save, because it's -2. Oh no! And they both go through. So that is 4 wounds onto the Terminator Captain. He has 1 wound remaining. So let's see how we get on. That then marks the end of the Space Marines term. So and in that they're in the battle round. So again, we've won for the Space Marines here. Now because of that, the failure to remove those Plague Marines, that is not a contested objective. So the Plague Marines at the Death Guard retain that objective, and again the Poxwalkers have maintained this objective over in the far corner. So that's moving on 6 points to 2. moving into turn 3 for the Death Guard. Okay, so now we're into the twilight hours of this game here. The Blight Lord has stayed in combat. We'll be looking to get that Lord of Contagion in and try and finish off the Warlord for the Space Marines. This squad of Plague Marines has advanced to get itself within 3 of the objective, and the Malignant Plague Caster has just brought himself out of the ruins in order to start casting off some psychic powers and try and do some damage, and see if we can just get to a point here where there is no coming back for the Space Marines. So let's see how we get on. So we'll be casting a smite for the Malignant Plague Caster into the Dreadnought. It goes off for D3 wounds for 1. Okay, and we'll do Curse of the Leper onto the Lieutenant. Goes off on an 8. So now we need 7 dice. And now that Lieutenant's strength toughness has gone down to 3 because of contagion, we'll be looking at 4s up. We'll do mortal wounds. Let's see if we can finish him off. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is just enough. It's what we need. And that Lieutenant has succumbed to some kind of horrific God knows what. Okay, move on to the shooting phase. So the only real viable target, there's nothing else to shoot because everything else is tied up in combat. So we'll be taking the Plague Burst Crawler and firing it into the Predator again. See if we can finish it off this time. So D6 mortar shots for 1. Doesn't look likely then, does it? So hitting on 4s. Misses. Okay. The Heavy Slugger. Misses. Okay. We're all having a good time. We're all having a fantastic time. Right, with that, we'll move on to the charge phase. So the only thing that's going to be charging will be Captain Trips into what would have been his once counterpart, Captain Petra Lachlan. We'll roll just to see if we can get him through, but he's an auto in anyway. And for 6, we'll move him through and start the fight phase. So all of the attacks from the Lord of Contagion are going to go into his counterpart. So he has 5 attacks, hitting on 2s and winning on 3s. He's going to use the Man Reaper, he's going to use the Cleave profile. So they all hit. Rerolling once, it's a plague weapon. Okay, it was what it was. So it's 3 wounds, straight onto the 4 up invulnerable save. But any of these, and he's gone. And yeah, okay, none of them. So that's the Warlord has fallen. So the Captain of the Ghosts coming out to this hallowed ground to see what happened to the Battalion of Battle Sisters on Sanctuary 404 is laid low by his counterpart from the Heralds of the Scourge. And so this squad of Tactical Marines fought back, with defenders fighting first, put everything onto the Blight Lord Terminator, forcing a wound. And then we'll move on to the Contemptor Dreadnought, putting everything back into these 3 Plague Marines and see if we can do anything at all. So, in on 3s, nothing doing like that. wounding on 3s. There's 2 wounds. So that'll be, again, because of cover still being a thing, 2 do go through. Now they are 3 each, so he manages to take 2 down with him. So what we'll do, we'll remove the Blight launcher and we'll remove the flail, leaving the champion alive. So now onto the Blight Lord fighting back, and onto the Plague Marine fighting back, and we'll see what we can do. So the flail, 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s because of the Lord. Okay. And rerolling 1s. So let's see if they can do anything at all. So that being 5 4-up saves. Sorry, 5 5-up saves. Let's see if we can keep the squad alive. That's a nope. That's a nope. That's a nope. That's a no. 2 damage weapon each. 2 damage weapon. That's the squad. So that marks the end. I'll just remove those casualties, and that will mark the end of the Death Guard. So here we are. It's a real quick summary. We're just going to see if we can clear these guys off of here, if at all, just to see if we can stop them from claiming the full 3 points at the end of this battle round. But if that's unsuccessful, then we'll be throwing in the towel. So it's 2d3 shots from the auto cannon for 6. Hitting on 4s because it's bracketed. Right. Wounds and doesn't save. So on to the last cannons. One hit, 1 miss. Wounds and doesn't save. Damage. Okay, reduce that down to 1. So that will leave 2 Marines alive. So with that, I think I may be able to potentially clear that Marine down, but that will still leave it contested at best. So with that, I think that marks end of the game, end of the battle round, end of the turn, end of the game. So we'll have a look how that works out and see what the scores look like. And so with flashes of teleportation, the ghosts of the Forge are teleported back to their battle barge in orbit, leaving Captain Trips and his warband to carry out whatever foul ritual they're wanting to carry out in this once proud and hallowed ground on Sanctuary 404.